Welcome back to the AAI Common Room. I'm Aristo, and with me as always are my esteemed and occasionally exasperating companions, Albert and Isaac. Today we're diving deep into the tumultuous, hilarious, and often downright bleak world of Tobias Smollett's The Adventures of Roderick Random. Albert, Isaac, glad you could make it.
Glad to be here, Aristo. And I have to say, this book, it's like a roller coaster designed by a madman. You think you've seen it all, and then Smollett just shuds you down another hill.
Roller coaster implies some measure of enjoyment. I found it more like being repeatedly bludgeoned with a series of misfortunes. But yes, I'm here, and I'm ready to discuss why Roderick is perhaps the unluckiest protagonist in English literature.
Unluckiest, or perhaps most aggressively unself-aware? We'll get into that. I just finished it, and honestly, I'm still reeling from the sheer density of events and the particular brand of heroism on display. It's a lot to unpack.
Oh, absolutely. And the preface itself is a whole philosophical treatise on satire and romance. Smollett really sets the stage for what he's trying to do, almost defending the Picaresque before he even starts.
He does. He contrasts his approach with Lesage's Gil Blas, claiming his protagonist will suffer more genuinely, and in that he absolutely delivers. Roderick's misfortunes aren't just for a laugh, they truly sting.
He talks about modest merit struggling with every difficulty. And for all of Roderick's flaws, there is a kernel of that. He's often genuinely trying to better himself, even if he keeps stumbling into terrible situations or making questionable choices.
But that's the thing, isn't it? He's this mix of genuine goodness and incredible naivete, combined with a fierce pride that often gets him into more trouble. It's not just external forces. His own disposition plays a huge part.
His haughty disposition, impatient of affronts, as he himself admits in Chapter 2. He's not entirely a victim, even if the world around him is brutally unfair. He has a knack for exacerbating his own problems.
And from the very beginning, his birth and parentage, it's just a cascade of injustices. His grandfather, the judge, a man remarkable for his abilities in the law, yet utterly devoid of familial affection or even basic human decency.
The dream his mother has about the tennis ball struck by the devil, that's such a striking image right at the start, foreshadowing the wild, unpredictable journey. And then the tree covered with blossoms, a promise of eventual prosperity, but only after incredible hardship.
It's almost biblical in its symbolism, but twisted with a grotesque, almost black humor. The devil as a midwife? Only Smollett.
And the grandfather's reaction to his son's marriage. Sir, you have made the grand tour. You are a polite gentleman, a very pretty gentleman. I wish you a great deal of joy, and am your very humble servant. That cold dismissal, that cutting sarcasm, it's chilling.
Oh, that line! It perfectly encapsulates the hypocrisy and cruel indifference of the so-called respectable society he's railing against. The politeness makes it even more vicious.
And his mother's death. Just a few pages in, and Roderick is an orphan. It sets the tone immediately. This is not going to be an easy ride for our hero.
No, definitely not an easy ride. And then we jump into his childhood. Hated by my relations, sent to school, neglected by my grandfather, maltreated by my master. It's just one indignity after another. The sheer inventiveness of the cruelty is almost impressive.
The schoolmaster, who, through fear of my grandfather, taught me gratis, but then punishes him for everything, including things he didn't do. The board with 5 holes for his fingers and thumb, fastened by whipcord. That's a truly barbaric image.
And the fact that he was flogged for having narrowly escaped drowning or for having recovered of a bruise, it's an absurdist level of injustice. It highlights the irrationality of authority in his world.
It truly does. And yet, through all this, Roderick is a survivor. He learns, he adapts, he even fights back. The cabals against the pedant, the stone-throwing skirmishes, he's not passively accepting his fate.
He's got that fire, that resilience, and his intellectual gifts are still shining through despite the lack of encouragement. A good proficient in the Latin tongue, surprising progress in the classics. He's genuinely smart, which makes his later struggles with fortune all the more frustrating. His intelligence is a double-edged sword, though. It allows him to see the injustice clearly, which fuels his indignation, but it doesn't necessarily grant him wisdom in navigating the world. He's quick to take offense.
And then enter Uncle Tom Bowling. Oh, what a character. The arrival of his mother's brother is such a breath of fresh air, a blast of genuine, if unrefined, affection in a sea of malice.
I cheered when Uncle Tom Bowling arrived. He's this force of nature, this blunt, honest, fiercely loyal man. His description alone is fantastic. Somewhat bandy-legged, with a neck like that of a bull, and a face which, you might easily perceive, had withstood the most obstinate assaults of the weather. You just see him.
And he immediately takes action, slaying the cousin's dogs with his hanger. By this time, the young fox hunter and 3 servants, armed with pitchforks and flails, were come to the assistance of the dogs, whom they found breathless upon the field. It's a moment of pure, visceral satisfaction after all Roderick's suffering.
It's a moment of glorious, unexpected violence on Roderick's behalf. And his dialogue, "Looky, brother, your dogs haven't boarded me without provocation. What I did was in my own defense." That nautical jargon, that directness, it's just wonderful.
And his confrontation with the grandfather. "What cheer, father? What cheer? I suppose you don't know me. Mayhap you don't. My name is Tom Bowling." He cuts through all the pretense and demands justice for Roderick, even offering to wager his whole half-year's pay on the boy's head regarding his scholarship.
It's a stark contrast to the rest of Roderick's family. Uncle Bowling is coarse, certainly, but honest. His outrage at the grandfather's inhumanity is genuine. I am sure the Moors in Barbary have more humanity than to leave their little ones to want. It's a powerful indictment.
And the grandfather's will. The build-up to that scene is fantastic, with everyone speculating about the inheritance, only for the young squire to be named sole heir, personal and real.
None at all for legacies. The fainting female cousin. It's so melodramatic and yet so perfectly executed to expose their avarice. And then the parson, trying to defend the old man's soul, only for the cousins to turn on him for having abused by false stories to their prejudice.
It's a brilliant turn, isn't it? The instant pivot of the cousins from mourning their grandfather to attacking the parson when their own interests are threatened. It shows how quickly grief can turn to self-interest.
And Uncle Bowling's reaction. "So there's no legacy, friend. Ha, here's an old succubus, but somebody's soul howls for it. Damn me. He's just so unfiltered."
And then he takes Roderick under his wing, arranging for his university education. It's such a generous act, especially considering his own slender finances. He's a true benefactor.
But not before they get their revenge on the schoolmaster. That scene is pure picaresque farce, but again with a core of righteous anger. I'll play him such a saltwater trick, I'll bring him to the gangway and anoint him with a cat and 9 tails.
"He shall have a round dozen doubled, my lad, he shall, and be left lashed to his meditations." I loved that line, and they actually do it. The description of the schoolmaster, roaring like a mad bull, danced, cursed, and blasphemed like a frantic bedlamite, is so vivid.
It's a cathartic moment for Roderick and for the reader. You feel like he's finally getting a little bit of his own back, and the usher being tied to his desk, forced to watch.
It's a moment of triumph, yes, but also a stark reminder of the brutality that Roderick has been subjected to. His revenge is equally brutal, even if it's deserved.
And then, just when Roderick thinks he's found some stability at the university, making great progress in his studies, and being caressed by everybody, the rug is pulled out from under him again.
The letter from Uncle Bowling. "I have quitted the Thunder Man of War, being obliged to sheer off for killing my captain, which I did fairly on the beach, having received his fire and returned it, which went through his body." What a casual way to deliver such news.
It's typical of Bowling. He views it as a matter of honor, a fair fight. But for Roderick, it means the loss of his only financial support.
And the apothecary, Mr. Potion, immediately turning on him.
I have a very great regard for Mr. Bowling, that's certain, and could be well content, but times are very hard. The instant selfishness, the charity begins at home argument. It's a brutal portrayal of human nature.
The hypocrisy. And then Gawky, his comrade, Squire Gawky, who Roderick saved from drowning, also betraying him and refusing to lend him money. That hits hard, doesn't it? The ingratitude.
It confirms what Smollett hinted at in the preface, that no wretch so ungrateful as he whom you have most generously obliged, and no enemy so implacable as those who have done you the greatest wrong. Roderick keeps encountering this.
He does, and this series of betrayals, after the initial promise of a stable education, really pushes Roderick out into the world. He's left with only 3 shillings in my purse, and that's where the real adventures begin.
He's forced to go to London, which is portrayed as this absolute den of iniquity. Every corner holds a new scam, a new betrayal. The sheer volume of scoundrels he encounters is astounding.
London becomes a character in itself, a labyrinth of deceit and hardship. It's a very specific kind of urban satire.
And he falls in with Strap, his loyal companion from school, who becomes his barber and servant. Strap is such a foil to Roderick, loyal, simple, good-hearted.
Strap is the true unsung hero of the story. He's always there for Roderick, always trying to help, even when Roderick is being impetuous or making terrible decisions. He's the moral anchor, such as it is.
He's almost too good to be true in this cynical world Smollett paints. His unwavering devotion is remarkable, especially given how often Roderick repays him poorly, often unintentionally, but sometimes due to his own pride.
Roderick tries his hand at various professions: surgeon's mate on a man of war, actor, even a servant. Each experience exposes him to a new layer of societal corruption and human depravity.
The naval scenes are incredibly vivid and brutal. Smollett drew heavily on his own experiences as a surgeon's mate. The descriptions of life on board, the illnesses, the harsh discipline, the incompetence of the officers, it's all incredibly raw.
The squalor and the cruelty aboard the ship are unforgettable. It's not romanticized in the slightest. He really shows the dark underbelly of the British Navy.
And his time as a surgeon's mate, where he's often more capable than the actual surgeons, yet still gets no respect or proper compensation. It's another example of merit being ignored.
The sheer number of characters he meets during his travels, from the philosophical misanthrope to the scheming gamesters, the arrogant aristocrats, the prostitutes, the quacks, it's a veritable parade of human folly.
It's a rogues gallery. Each new acquaintance seems to either take advantage of him, betray him, or just contribute to his general misery.
And his romantic entanglements. Narcissa, Melinda, Miss Williams, Miss Cacklet. He's constantly falling in love, or at least believing he's in love, only for circumstances or his own impulsive nature to complicate things.
Narcissa is the idealized, almost ethereal figure, the reward for all his suffering. But the journey to her is filled with so many detours, isn't it? The pursuit of her is almost a thread of hope through the chaos.
Melinda, on the other hand, is a calculating, self-interested woman. She's a stark contrast to Narcissa, highlighting Roderick's sometimes poor judgment when it comes to women. He's easily swayed by superficial charms or promises of wealth.
He often mistakes flattery or convenience for genuine affection. It's part of his naivete, even after all he's been through. He wants to believe in the good, but the world keeps teaching him otherwise.
And his time in France. He tries to live as a gentleman, to recover his fortune, but it's just another series of mishaps and financial woes, culminating in him being thrown into the Bastille.
Which he recounts with remarkable detachment, considering the circumstances. It's another extreme of his experiences. He's seen the highest and lowest points of society, and been imprisoned by both.
And it's often his own pride, his inability to suffer a slight, that lands him in these deeper troubles. He challenges people to duels. He speaks his mind too freely. He's not always blameless.
Exactly. That's what makes him a complex character. He's not just a passive recipient of misfortune. He actively contributes to his own predicaments through his temper and his hot-headedness.
which is both frustrating and, at times, admirable. He refuses to be utterly broken, even when every circumstance conspires against him. There's a stubborn dignity there, even if it's misguided.
And the episode with Miss Williams, the prostitute, that's a particularly poignant one, isn't it? Her story of how she fell into that life, it's a genuinely sympathetic portrayal amidst all the cynicism.
That's a moment where Smollett really shows his empathetic side. He doesn't just present her as a fallen woman. He gives her a voice, and her narrative is a powerful commentary on the vulnerability of women in that era.
It's a brief but impactful shift in tone. It reminds you that underneath the satire and the picaresque adventures, there are real human tragedies unfolding. And Roderick, for all his flaws, listens to her story.
It shows a different side of Roderick, too, his capacity for compassion. He's not entirely self-absorbed, though he often comes across that way. He feels for her.
And the connections he makes, or rather re-establishes, with people like Mr. Potion or the French officer from the ship when they encounter him in different guises. It's a small world, even when he's globetrotting.
The cyclical nature of his encounters is interesting. It's like the universe keeps throwing the same people at him in different costumes just to test his reactions.
And then the eventual resolution. After all this global wandering and suffering, he eventually finds his father alive, living comfortably. It's such a sudden and almost unbelievable turn of events.
That's the romance element coming through, isn't it? The traditional happy ending, the prodigal son returning, the lost father found, the virtuous love interest finally secured. It ties up all the loose ends in a way that almost feels too neat after the preceding chaos.
Almost too neat is an understatement. His father, a man who abandoned him, is now conveniently wealthy and repentant. It feels like a quick way to resolve the plot, rather than a natural conclusion to Roderick's character arc.
Well, it is a novel from that era. The picaresque hero often, though not always, gets some kind of reward at the end. But what do we make of his father's story? The whole I disappeared out of despair, wandered, found success, and decided to come back narrative.
It provides a convenient explanation, even if it stretches credulity. But it also serves to highlight the injustice of the grandfather once more, as the father finally receives his due, and Roderick gets his inheritance. It's a reversal of fortunes for the entire lineage.
It's less about his father's character development and more about fulfilling the prophecy from the first chapter, the tree covered with blossoms. Roderick would flourish in happiness and reputation back in his native land.
And he eventually marries Narcissa, who has remained faithful through all of his wanderings and misfortunes, even after hearing all the scandalous stories spread about him by his cousins.
The steadfast, virtuous love interest is essential for that happy ending. She represents the ideal, the reward for perseverance. And her family, once haughty, now welcomes him because of his rediscovered fortune. It's a cynical twist even within the happy ending.
Exactly. The world's opinion of him changes entirely with his financial status. His modest merit is finally acknowledged, but only because it's accompanied by wealth. It underscores Smollett's critique of society's values.
It's not just a happy ending. It's a statement about the power of money in society. All the virtues in the world mean nothing without it, and all the vices are overlooked if you have enough.
Which brings us back to the satire. Smollett uses Roderick's journey to expose every level of corruption and hypocrisy, the legal system, the military, the medical profession, the aristocracy, even the church. No institution is spared.
He's ruthless in his critique, and the details, the specific incidents of venality and incompetence, make it feel incredibly real, despite the episodic, often exaggerated nature of the plot.
He describes the world as a place where humors and passions are undisguised by affectation, ceremony, or education. He strips away the veneer of politeness to show the raw, self-serving motivations beneath.
And yet, amidst all this darkness, there are glimmers of genuine humanity. Uncle Bowling, Strap, Miss Williams' story, even some fleeting moments of kindness from unexpected quarters. It's not entirely bleak.
True, but those moments are rare and often overshadowed by the overwhelming tide of indifference and malice. It keeps the reader on edge, expecting the next betrayal.
What about the ending itself? Does it feel earned? After such a long, arduous journey, does Roderick truly mature, or is he simply rescued by a convenient plot device?
I think he does mature in a way. He's certainly more world-weary, perhaps a bit more cynical, but he hasn't lost his core sense of self-respect or his capacity for love and loyalty. He's been hammered into a different shape, but the metal is still there.
I disagree. I think his core character remains largely unchanged. He's still hot-headed, still prone to rash decisions. The external circumstances improve, but his internal struggles, his pride and quickness to anger are never fully resolved. He just happens to get lucky at the end.
That's a fair point, Isaac. He certainly doesn't undergo a profound moral transformation in the way some protagonists do. His virtue is more about his initial good intentions and his refusal to be utterly corrupted, rather than a journey towards greater wisdom.
But isn't that part of the Picaresque tradition? The rogue doesn't necessarily become a saint. He survives, he learns how to survive, and sometimes he gets a break. Roderick's resilience itself is a form of growth, learning to navigate the treacherous currents of life.
Survival isn't necessarily growth. He remains impulsive. His good fortune at the end feels more like a divine intervention than the fruit of his developed character. His father reappears precisely when all hope is lost.
So you'd argue the resolution is more thematic than character-driven? A comment on society's eventual recognition of worth, even if that recognition is tied to wealth and lineage.
Precisely. It's Smollett saying, this is how the world actually works, even if we pretend it's about virtue. The happy ending is a societal convention applied to highlight the preceding struggle, not a testament to Roderick's profound change.
But he does show loyalty to Strap at the end, promising to take care of him. That's a sign of a developed character, isn't it? Remembering those who stood by him.
That's true. His affection for Strap is consistent throughout, and Uncle Tom Bowling, the consistent force of genuine affection, is rewarded with a stable position. Those relationships are the bedrock.
They are. But Roderick's treatment of Strap isn't always admirable. He often takes advantage of Strap's generosity and good nature, so his final gesture is a belated recognition rather than a consistent demonstration of gratitude.
Oh, come on, Isaac. You're being too harsh. He's a young man, buffeted by forces beyond his control, often starving. It's easy to judge from our comfortable armchairs. Given his circumstances, his survival and his retention of any moral compass at all is a triumph.
It's a harsh world he lives in, that's for sure. The sheer amount of physical suffering, the beatings, the illness, the hunger, it makes you appreciate the luxuries of modern life.
Absolutely. The grim reality of poverty in 18th century Britain is vividly portrayed. It's not just a backdrop for adventure, it's a constant, pressing threat.
And the language. Smollett's prose is so vibrant, so energetic. The descriptions of characters, the dialogue, it's incredibly engaging, even when the subject matter is unpleasant. His command of invective is unmatched.
The unmeaning oaths he mentions in the preface, which he includes to expose the absurdity of such miserable expletives, he really commits to capturing the coarseness of speech.
It makes the world feel authentic, not sanitized. You hear the characters, you smell the grime. It's immersive, even if it's not always pleasant.
And the humor. It's often dark, satirical, bordering on grotesque, but it's there. The absurdity of some of the situations, the sheer over-the-top reactions.
The episode where Roderick tries to become an actor, for instance, it's filled with such farcical elements, and his attempts to impress the audience, only to be ridiculed.
It's the kind of humor that makes you wince and laugh at the same time. You feel for Roderick, but you also recognize the inherent ridiculousness of his aspirations in such a corrupt world.
Let's talk about the structure. It's episodic, obviously, a journey of a friendless orphan, but there's a strong through line of his quest for recognition and fortune.
The overarching narrative is his search for his place in the world, his identity, and his rightful inheritance. That's what gives it coherence, even with the digressions.
And the constant struggle against selfishness, envy, malice, and base indifference of mankind, that's the primary antagonist throughout the entire book, far more than any single villain.
It makes you wonder how much of Smollett's own experiences are woven into this. He was a surgeon's mate, he knew poverty, he knew the naval world. It feels deeply personal in its anger.
He certainly draws on his own observations. The vividness of the naval scenes, the medical quackery, the legal corruption, it all feels like it comes from direct experience. He's not just making it up.
The apologue at the beginning is also fascinating, isn't it? The painter whose conversation piece is interpreted as a lampoon on specific individuals, leading to public outrage.
That's Smollett directly addressing the potential for personal satire, isn't it? He's saying, don't assume these characters are any one person, but acknowledge that they're true to nature. He's covering himself.
Seek not to appropriate to thyself that which equally belongs to 500 different people. It's a clever way to both disarm critics and hint that, yes, these types do exist, and you might even know them.
It's a meta-commentary on the nature of satire itself, the discomfort it causes, the defensiveness it provokes. He's aware of the power of his pen.
And it's a power he wields with incredible force. The biting social commentary, the unflinching portrayal of human nastiness. It's not a comfortable read, but it's a necessary one.
The novel really cemented the picaresque in English literature, building on Gil Blas, but, as Smollett intended, with a more serious undercurrent of social criticism.
And a more sympathetic protagonist, despite his flaws. We're meant to root for Roderick, even when he's acting like an idiot. His suffering elicits compassion, not just mirth, which was Smollett's stated goal.
I think it's the sheer relentlessness of his misfortunes that makes him so compelling. You just want to see him catch a break, eventually. And when he does, you feel a genuine, if fleeting, sense of relief.
And the descriptions of the physical world are so rich, from the Scottish countryside to the bustling, dirty streets of London to the ship at sea. You feel transported.
It's almost documentary-like in its detail sometimes, despite the hyperbolic incidents. He grounds the fantastical with concrete observations.
So if you had to pick one scene that exemplifies the spirit of Roderick Random, what would it be? For me, it might be the revenge on the schoolmaster. It's got the brutality, the humor, the sense of righteous anger, and the unconventional hero.
For me, it would be the immediate aftermath of Uncle Bowling's letter, when the apothecary, Mr. Potion, instantly turns on him. It perfectly captures the base indifference of mankind and the swiftness with which fortune can change. It's a microcosm of Roderick's entire journey.
Both excellent choices. I think I'd lean towards the grandfather's will being read. The assembly of greedy relatives, the false grief, the abrupt disappointment, and Uncle Bowling's unfiltered reaction. It sets up the whole world Roderick is entering, one where appearances are deceiving and true worth is overlooked.
That scene really is a masterclass in social satire. The way Smollett exposes the hypocrisy of the family.
It's all about money and status right from the start. That's the driving force.
Indeed. And Roderick, for all his ups and downs, is constantly struggling against that system. He tries to rise on merit, but it's always fortune or favor that truly makes the difference.
It makes you think about our own society, actually. How much has really changed? Are we still so quick to judge based on appearances and wealth?
Some things, sadly, are timeless. Human nature and its self-serving aspects remains remarkably consistent.
And Smollett's exploration of pride, both as a virtue and a vice, is also central. Roderick's pride sustains him, prevents him from being utterly crushed, but it also repeatedly gets him into hot water.
It's a very Augustan preoccupation, the role of pride. Is it a sin, or is it a necessary component of self-respect? Smollett seems to suggest it's a bit of both, depending on the context.
It's the constant tension in Roderick's character, that push and pull. He wants to be humble and grateful, but his innate sense of his own worth won't allow him to be trampled.
And it's why, despite all his questionable actions, we still sympathize with him. We understand that underlying sense of injustice that fuels his reactions.
He's a product of his environment and a commentary on it. He embodies the struggles of a young man trying to make his way in a world that offers him very little.
It's a powerful indictment of a society that allows such talent and potential to be wasted or forced into such desperate straits.
It truly is, and it leaves you with a lot to ponder about justice, fortune, and the resilience of the human spirit, even when that spirit is a bit rough around the edges.
Rough around the edges is an understatement. But he's real, isn't he? Far more real than some of the more idealized heroes of other contemporary novels.
Oh, absolutely. He's messy, he's flawed, he's human. That's his enduring appeal.
Well, it's been a wild ride, just like Roderick's adventures. Albert, Isaac, thank you for navigating the treacherous waters of the Adventures of Roderick Random with me today.
Always a pleasure, Aristo. What a book.
Indeed. An experience, if nothing else.
And to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of Roderick's many, many unfortunate encounters struck you as the most profoundly unjust, or perhaps the most surprisingly humorous? Let us know in the comments.
And if you've enjoyed our chaotic but hopefully insightful dive into Smollett, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep the common room open. And trust me, we have many more literary adventures planned. Just think of it as securing your own happy ending.
Or at least ensuring you won't be left lashed to your meditations without a new episode.
Perfect, Isaac. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep those conversations going.